From the Beaver County Auto Studios, it's a live trade deadline recap here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski in a little bit of an abbreviated, or I should say modified studio. The lights are a little different tonight, and of course, I'm going to blame that for looking even uglier than usual. Hey, so fantastic trade deadline day. In so much as I thought it had all of the drama and all of the excitement that you ask for in a deadline day. I know, Penguins fans, you've already decided you hate everything about the Penguins' acquisitions. You've decided that at no point will you give Erik Gudbranson a chance. At no point is Jim Rutherford to be spared. He will be tarred and feathered in or on Grant Street henceforth tomorrow at sundown. I get it. We're going to talk about all of those things and so much more here. We're going to go through the entire league. You know what? A funny thing? I was so busy at the rink in Cranberry. I had finished. Our Penguins source had told us that indeed the Penguins were done. Like 2:30, they're like, yeah, it doesn't look good. Rutherford doesn't like the prices. They're packing it in. The Penguins put out a press release, hey, there's a meeting or a press conference at 2:45. The Penguins were done. They were out. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. But 2:45 came, and 2:45 went. So, believe me, we were a little surprised. And okay, something's going on. We knew Florida had emerged today. And I don't know if you saw my Teddy Bluger demoted story. We did make a reference to Florida and Ottawa, actually, coming in today, and there being talks. We actually, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, I took a look. I made some, I speculated that it could be Mark Pysyk. He makes about $2.8 million. Figured, okay, that's just about what the Penguins have to spend. Didn't see Vancouver coming at all. I don't think anybody did. Obviously, this came about very quickly. Very stealth, Jim Rutherford. He kind of does that. Let's get into the Penguins situation here, and hopefully everybody. Let me make sure I share this here on Twitter live as we do this. I'm just going to say live now. No live girls, just me live now. Let's get into this because first of all, there is optimism surrounding Chris Letang and his injury. Believe me when I tell you the Penguins had a lump in their throat on Saturday. That's probably all I'm going to say. They were nervous. However, today at practice, Mike Sullivan actually used very, very unique wording today. He didn't say Chris Letang was day-to-day. He said Letang would be evaluated every day. Take that for whatever it's worth. What we essentially, Sullivan clarified that, let me fix my mic a little bit. Sullivan clarified that he was optimistic. Jim Rutherford, in his press conference, said that they hope to get the defense more healthy by this weekend. So I guess that's why Letang isn't day-to-day. After tomorrow night in Columbus, he could be back. So, or it could be a week, but they're not preparing for a weeks-long adventure with Letang. Dumoulin, obviously, with a concussion. That could be tomorrow. He starts feeling better. It could be 2 weeks. You just don't know. So, Penguins fans obviously up in arms. How could the Penguins possibly give away Tanner Pearson? My God! Don't they know what Pearson brings? Oh, wait. No, that's not why Penguins fans are upset. Penguins fans are upset reflexively because the Penguins got a guy who can punch. Therefore, he can't play hockey. Are you getting tired of this narrative yet? Are you all getting tired of just following the leader with this group think? And when 3 or 4 people say it, like 30 people tweet it, you're getting tired of the same bloggers telling you the same nonsense yet? Are you getting tired of having people give you opinions who don't know any more than you? Please tell me yes. Erik Gudbranson, I don't know if he's a great hockey player or not. I don't know where he fits with the Penguins. I don't know if he fits long term. And that, my friends, is the point. We don't know. The Penguins think they see something. The Penguins actually needed defense. So here's what happened. The Penguins picked up defensive depth at the exact same price as Tanner Pearson. Almost a revenue-neutral swap. I shouldn't say exact same price, similar. Pearson was $3.75. Gudbranson is $4 million. $250,000 is the difference, which, heck, that's the dinner tab on a road trip sometimes. Gudbranson can stick his nose in where it belongs occasionally. Jack Johnson is not a fighter. Johnson's a tough stay-at-home guy, but he's not a guy who's going to really drop the gloves. Now, Gudbranson is not a fighter. That would be a very wrong mischaracterization. Let me share this on Facebook now. To call Gudbranson a fighter would kind of be very, I don't know, you're not giving him his justice. He's a defenseman. He's a tough, stay-at-home, shot-blocking defenseman. I know. You don't want another one of those. You got Johnson. You hate Jack Johnson. I get it. I get it all. What I'm saying is I want to see where he fits. The Penguins actually want to see him in an up-tempo, puck-moving sort of role. I think he's got some skills. He was a 3rd overall pick, mind you. They want to see. He's 27. And worst case scenario. What have the Penguins lost? Worst case scenario here. They've lost Tanner Pearson. They've lost a guy who has 1 point in 13 games. They've lost a guy who was a vanilla frosty. I don't know where Tanner Pearson went. This was not the version I saw in Los Angeles a couple years ago. He was a non-factor, non-impact player with the Penguins. So if Gudbranson makes the Penguins bench feel a little bit bigger because he just goes and punches Mark Haley, which, by the way, he did. Is this... Yeah. Here's him punching Mike Haley, rather. And Mike Haley was the guy who, I think, cold-cocked Crosby last week when the Sharks beat the Penguins. Look at that face, man. You don't want to mess with that guy. Now, Gudbranson's not a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. He is not a guy you're going to rely on to go out there and drop the mitts 10 times a year. He's got 3 fights this season, and he'll probably drop the mitts once or twice more. That's it. That's all. So I don't know what everyone is entirely expecting from this. The Twitter meltdown was as predictable as it was laughable. And so there again, I say to everyone, don't you want to be just don't you want to know more about hockey? The bloggers are killing me today. Not me personally today. They were just really driving me nuts today. Let me hit the chat board here because for some reason it hadn't refreshed. Ryan says, I like the Pens trade to Vancouver for another D. Appears to be a big body to help protect his team. Yeah, that's kind of really all it is. It's a salary. Think about this. Pearson was in the press box last weekend. If that's where Gudbranson winds up, he still has value to deal in the summertime. And the Penguins get help when they need it while Letang and Dumoulin are out. That's what it was. Mr. Tom Wilson eats urinal cakes. How are you, sir? He says that we'll see if it's true. If we play Nashville 2 times and the Caps once in March, Simmons and Wilson need a beating. Mr. Tom Wilson eats urinal cakes. Let me cut you off at the pass on that. If you're banking on Gudbranson being like this Ryan Reeves, new sheriff in town guy, you're a bit mistaken. Look, he's got 3 fights this year. He's not a guy that's out there looking to drop the mitts. I don't know why Penguins fans, more than most, have this dividing line. If you fight, you only fight. That's just not the way it goes down. Okay, guys? Oh, right, let me... Keith says, hey, Dan, great to hear you. Yes, I know, Keith. Tell us about this housing issue. Remind me about that at the end of the show. My landlords have pushed the date back now to March 1st. That's Friday. I am going crazy. I've been staying in the mountains, out in the suburbs. It's driving me nuts. Last night, I had no electricity. So I'm at IHOP till like 3 a.m. last night writing all the trade deadline stuff. And the waitress just brought me this giant pot of coffee, which I knocked down. I tipped her as well as she would let me. Anyway, how's that? Corey, give new guy chance keep. Gino calm. Corey? I have no idea what you're saying. I think you're saying let's give the new guy a chance and let's keep Gino calm. I think that would we'll have to get rid of those periods in your sentence, man. I honestly don't know quite what you're telling me, but I appreciate you being here. All right, so yeah, with the parameters the Pens had for the deadline and the fact that JR moved on from Pearson trade, it's a good move. Look at the bigger picture, folks, Keith says. Yeah, I mean, this is literally a case of nothing ventured, nothing gained. Worst case scenario, the Penguins walk away from this dead even. Yet, honestly now, I think my proclivity to be annoyed by a lot of the blogosphere is already well known. And let me introduce myself. Because maybe, I know I've got a name on here somewhere. There. My name is Dan Kingerski. I am a hockey guy. I'm not a blogger. I'm not a writer who covers hockey. I'm a hockey guy who now has a website, video channel. I have worked for Sportsnet, NHL Home Ice. I have covered the Penguins since 2001 in various forms. I've been there through the good and the bad for different teams in different cities around the league. I am not a fan. I don't hate your favorite team. I don't love your favorite team. I don't hate your favorite player. I don't love your favorite player. I love hockey. I love hockey, and I'm very loyal to the game itself. That's where I'm coming from almost exclusively. And so I'm going to have very different opinions from what you see on Twitter, very different opinions from what you see online. I make a point, and what separates PittsburghHockeyNow.com from other outlets and other online outlets is we do a lot more analysis. And in that analysis, I talk to smart people. I don't necessarily take my own word or my own eyes for a lot of things. And I make a point to pick the brain of very smart people. And when I disagree with them, I don't argue. I ask. I ask questions, and I need to prod, and I make a point to learn every day. Hell, I'm 42 now, and I'm still learning as much as I can every single day about this crazy game. That's where we're coming from, and so my opinion on the Penguins deal today is obviously much different than you're seeing on Twitter. And just as a side note, take a look at how much of that opinion was just filled with snark? How much of that opinion was just bashing the defenseman's advanced statistics, making fun of him, or making fun of a player who would fight, or marginalize and dismissing, rather than saying, okay, the big guy isn't a good enough skater. Evidence here. The big guy, doesn't do these things well. You don't see a whole lot of that, do you? Now, I'll be diving into the film room. I'm going to rip it apart. I'm going to look at his time in Vancouver. I'm going to look at the physical skills that the Penguins think might be there. And I'm going to evaluate. I'm going to tell you what I see. If I see that this guy is going to be an albatross, I'm going to tell you. If I see he's got some skills that they can work with, I'm going to tell you that as well. I will not pile on a player. Absolutely not. All right, so if that little monologue is finished here, let me get back to the chat board. Mata trade is guaranteed at the draft now, likely Kessel too. That's what Drew says. I don't know, Drew. Now, if Gudbranson is really good over the next 6 weeks, or actually maybe next 3 months, then it's possible, sure. But nothing is guaranteed right now. They got Gudbranson because they were desperate for a defenseman. Full stop. They thought they were done at 2 o'clock today. They called a press conference before the deadline to say they were out, before those couple moves with Chris Wideman, formerly of the Ottawa Senators, down in Florida's minor leagues now, So, no, nothing is guaranteed. The other thing I saw on Twitter, y'all, drove me, and it just got parroted, and that always drives me a little bit crazy, is that, the Penguins now have $7.25 million in their third pairing defenseman. The fist shaking is for all the emojis and the hand wringing going on. How do you know? How do you know that the third pairing is now Jack Johnson and Erik Gudbranson? How do you know the Penguins are going to keep Gudbranson beyond this summer? How do you know the Penguins are going to keep Jack Johnson beyond this summer? Put it in context. They gave away Tanner Pearson. They got rid of Pearson's $3.75. They took on a defenseman, which they need, a right-handed defenseman, which they need, for $4 million. Let's see here. Mutation. Hey, brother, what do you think of the Pens' odds of making the playoffs? I think the stats nerds have it at about 75%. We just published a piece on PittsburghHockeyNow.com. Jim Rutherford said he's nervous. And quite frankly, he should be. The Penguins on paper should have no problem making the playoffs. The Penguins on the ice cannot put all facets of the game together for any sustained period of time. There's always a breakdown. Murray has been inconsistent. The Penguins forwards, especially the middle lines, Kessel, Malkin, have been all over the map. I see Malkin really coming out of it with Zach Aston Reese. Got to like that. But Kessel has kind of disappeared or remained invisible. So you've got that. You've got the third line now trying to gel with Bukestad in the middle. And there's just always a problem with the Penguins. I'm a Saab guy. That's still one of my favorite cars. It's like owning a Saab. You fix the plastic cap on the windshield wipers, and the fuel pump goes. You replace the fuel pump, and the windows stop working. It's just kind of you're always chasing something with this team. And I'll tell you what, if there's one thing I think the Penguins are really hoping from this Vancouver defenseman, and it is that he's a butt kicker in the room as well. He's a leader. He's just not only a shutdown defender, but he's a guy in the room, a heart and soul guy. Maybe the Penguins were missing some new heart, some new blood to in that leadership role. Maybe he asserts himself. Who was it? The Athletic wrote about the 2009 deadline when they got Billy Guerin. It was the rug that brought the room together. Maybe this new guy is the rug. We don't know. To make any judgments right now would be fairly silly. Oren says Gudbranson is very similar to Jack Johnson, low skill level, good size and strength, slow decision makers. Yeah, you know what? I see Johnson sometimes hold on to that puck a little too long. He did that early in the first period against Philadelphia, and he definitely did that against San Jose, where he would kind of pause, like a pregnant pause, what we used to call in radio, and that allowed San Jose to really get on him. So, very good analysis, Oren. These players only make sense if they made less than $1.5 million. Look, $3 million is the new 1.5. NHL salaries are going to be a lot higher in a couple years when Seattle splashes, when Arizona moves, and everyone knows this. So, $3 million is not exactly expensive. Tanner, yo! Jared asks, why is Trotman getting the nod over Wideman tomorrow? Well, Wideman's in the minors, really. Trotman is a bit familiar with the Penguins system. That's about all I can tell you. I don't think they're that impressed with Wideman. I think they just got him for depth. And they're going to see what he's got in their puck-moving up-tempo system. And if he takes to it like a fish to water, I think you'll see him in a Penguins uniform. If he doesn't, again, no harm, no foul. Christopher, DK Sports has people thinking that Prow is a stud. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm going to stay in my own lane. This has nothing to do with DK, but I've seen a lot of that. Ethan Prow. Nah. Look, here again, this is the difference between somebody who is very experienced in hockey, more than media. Well, very experienced in media too, but it has made a point to be very experienced in the media side of things and or the hockey side of things. It was obvious in training camp 10 seconds in, just crossed him off my list, to be blunt. When Oli Mata went down, I made the call to my Wilkes-Barre people who know their stuff. You know, I'm not talking to the peanut vendors in Wilkes-Barre. And I said, hey, I see the stats. Did Ethan Prow take that step forward? Is it Prow? Did he take that step forward? And the answer was no. He's a good puck mover in the American Hockey League. His skates and other facets of his game, I'm not going to pile on the guy, but he's not an NHL player. And obviously the Penguins don't see him as such as well. I mean, look, the guy's spent considerable time in the ECHL recently. So if you see people throwing that out, just take it with a grain of salt as they're looking at stats, or they don't necessarily have the same deck of cards that I'm going to offer you. And if you have any questions about any like the stuff I say, ask me. I'll empty the cache. Everything that goes into the statements and the opinions and the analysis that we do isn't secret. I'll never tell you because I said so. Hey, thanks, Dan. You're the best. Well, I try. Yeah, Keith gives the playoffs a 50-50 shot. I kind of think so, too. Carolina is red hot. Montreal has Carey Price. I mean, they're going to be in every game. And Columbus now has Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel. They got Adam McQuaid for a 4th and a 7th today. Nice depth defender. His job will be probably to punch Sidney Crosby. And Gudbranson's job will be to punch Adam McQuaid. And then you have the two big guys punching each other, and hopefully Sidney Crosby doesn't have to punch either of them. That's kind of how that works. Giovanni says the game against Philadelphia was horrible. In what sense, Gio? Ryan asks, thoughts on the Stadium Series game? He sat 13 rows from the front. Can't believe they lost. Yeah, I had a lot of my stuff written and then had to rewrite a good bit of it. What did I think of Simmons' hit and McCann trying to grab Simmons? Look, the Penguins have had 3 scraps over the last 10 days. McCann has been in the middle of every single one of them. He was in the middle of that Sharks melee. He was the guy watching Kane, and he was the guy that got in Kane's face. I've been told what McCann said to Evander Kane. I mean, I'm not going to repeat it, but the little scrappy dog essentially offered to put Kane's nose in a better position. I mean, all 5'11" Jared McCann just has no fear. He's a scrapper. I dig that. Thoughts on Bluger over Simone or Cullen? Bluger was sent down today. When Simone is on his game, Simone is actually a pretty good hockey player. Like legit, third-line scorer type guy. Problem is, he's a small guy. He's going to wear down. Gets knocked off his game. He's going to struggle a bit in the same ways that Connor Sherry did. Cullen is in the lineup. Cullen has been very good for months now. And only that October perception, there again, the blogosphere, the tastemakers led you astray. He's 42. He can't be any good. You can tell that some things are on my nerves the last couple of weeks. Can you tell? But Matt Cullen has been exceptional this season. He really has been a dynamite defender. He's been taking on other teams' top lines and winning most of those battles. Not every battle. I mean, he's had a few clunkers. Like every other player, he's had a few clunkers. I like Teddy Bluger a lot. I certainly would have had Bluger ahead of Pearson. Now that Pearson's gone, Bluger had to be sent down. And there again, the blogosphere led you astray, telling you that Bluger's demotion was just a paper transaction. When he wasn't at practice, it stopped being a paper transaction. But, Bluger is going to be a very good fourth liner for somebody. Maybe not the Penguins. Maybe he's a good third liner. Maybe for the Penguins, maybe not. I don't know. I honestly don't. I could see the Penguins dealing him. They just don't seem to be in love with him quite like a lot of us are. I like the spark plug kind of guys, but he just doesn't fit into the arrangement right now. And the Penguins actually needed to send him down. They'll only have 12 forwards tomorrow night in Columbus because they're not putting Chris Letang and Brian Dumoulin on IR. They want them available for this weekend. There is the hope that they're back. So they needed to clear the space, and Bluger is down in Wilkes-Barre. Ricola, and I'm not sure if Zach Aston Reese will be a paper transaction, but I think the Penguins did probably a paper trans for Ricola so that he can play in the Wilkes-Barre playoffs if that were to occur. Z Smooth says, what do I say about these trades? Z, like I said before, the Penguins gave up Tanner Pearson, and they got defensemen who can help them in other areas. What's the worst that it can be? At baseline, what's the worst that can happen at this point? The Penguins didn't lose anything, that's for sure. Wondering if Phil has been hurt again and he put the streak ahead of rest. I don't think so. Now that the trade deadline has come and gone, who said that? Derek? Now that the trade deadline has come and gone, I'll be doing a big breakdown on Phil Kessel. But hey, I'll give this all to you here now live. It very much mirrors Evgeny Malkin's struggles and evolution and metamorphosis this season. Kessel isn't getting that step on defenders anymore. Third-pairing defensemen can now skate. And so Kessel isn't getting that right-wing dot like he used to with a clear shot at the goalie. The defenseman's in the way now. And that's taking such a big part of Kessel's game. He's not getting those clean, open looks that allowed him to just rip it and make some things happen. And as we saw with Malkin, when a player has their bread and butter taken away from them, it starts a spiral. It starts this head game where they have to figure out other ways to get it done. Malkin is doing that. I mean, Malkin is ridiculously talented. Phil Kessel is not exactly a guy who's in great shape. Phil Kessel is not a physical kind of guy. And so he's going to have a harder time figuring all of this out. Take it for what it's worth. I'll be doing a deeper dive on Pittsburgh hockey now. But really, that's so much of, I think, Kessel's problems. And once it gets in your head, you have to really work hard to get out of your head, to break that out of your head, and to get onto the right path. Kessel might actually have to throw a couple body checks to get on the wall, to get those pucks, to come off the wall and snap it instead of trying to play on the rush. Drew says, I think we needed a top six forward. Nyquist went for a second and conditional third. He has like 46. Actually, I think Nyquist has 48 in 61. Or maybe it is 46, Drew. Look, Marcus Johansson was the guy I know the Penguins really wanted. They really wanted to see if they could get their hands on Johansson. The problem is they don't have a second or a third rounder this year or next year. I don't think they have a second round pick until 2021. So they would have had to have, let's reverse the deal that that Boston got Johansson for. Maybe the Penguins could have given up a 2019 fourth rounder and a 2020. No, they couldn't even do a 2020 second rounder. So there, the Penguins were just kind of snookered. They really were. The Penguins, Jim Rutherford just through his own doing and going for broke the last several years, had nothing left to give. The Penguins would have put Kalen Addison on the table or Philip Hollander and hope that New Jersey would bite on something like that. And given that 2020 is a very deep draft, and given that Addison's prospect status is iffy, he was a second-round pick in a weak draft. Take it for what you will. I'm not in the habit of breaking down juniors players, and I haven't done the film work on him. I know that he was dismissed pretty quickly from Team Canada's World Juniors camp. So that tells me a little something. And I know that Hollander was kind of a non-factor in very limited opportunity with Team Sweden during the World Juniors this year as well. And given that 2019 is a very deep draft, I'm sure New Jersey was preferring a second rounder this year than compared to last year. So I guess they couldn't make Johansson work, obviously. Drew, I'm with you, though. Had the Penguins been able to snare a second-round pick? Yep. In fact, here is Johansson. That's not Dan Kingerski. That's Johansson. And that's Adam McQuaid, who I know the Penguins had some discussions about on Sunday. Man, for Adam McQuaid's sanity, I was rooting against the Penguins acquiring him. boy, Penguins Twitter would have just chewed him up and spit him out. By the way, I was talking about McCann in the middle of every scrap and grabbing Wayne Simmons. Yeah, there he is. Jared, he's a lot bigger than you are. A lot. but the kid doesn't back down. Let me tell you something. Okay, let's see here. I guess I've got some chatters fighting amongst themselves now. Let's see here. Okay, I'm trying to see the questions to me instead of there's an argument going on about Ethan Prow now and different media outlets. I'm trying to skip past that. D'Lo asked, wasn't Pearson playing a little bit better the last couple games? Do you think he could have added some secondary scoring or no? On paper, yeah, D'Lo. He really should have added a lot more. This is a guy 18 months ago just finished a 24-goal season. It just wasn't there. The Penguins were desperate for some defensemen, defensive help, so they got a thumper. Look, Philadelphia kicked their ass in the first period, just like San Jose ran them and kicked their butt a few nights last Thursday night. And the Penguins have 3 games against Columbus coming up. What do you think that's going to be like? I promise you, Columbus is not setting a place for tea. Columbus is going to come at them with everything they've got, and they're going to go at Crosby and Malkin. So Gudbranson is not going to prevent Columbus from hitting Crosby and Malkin. This is, I think, another one of the big Penguin fan misconceptions. They're not going to prevent Crosby and Malkin from getting hit. But isn't it nice when you can hit back? Don't you feel a little better about yourself? The bench swells when you hit back. And you don't have to risk Evgeny Malkin's hands hitting back, or Sidney Crosby's hands, or Chris Letang diving into a melee and getting a side body blocked by Gostisbehere. You don't have to risk those things. So that's kind of it. There's some kind of argument going on here. I'm not even going to get caught up on my own little message board here. Will Blueger get called up once Trotman is sent back down? No. Because when Trotman is sent down, that means Letang or Dumoulin will be returning. When they can bring up the 13th forward, most certainly you'll see Blueger back up when Letang and or Dumoulin are back in the lineup. Let's see here. Pens should have gotten Petrovic. Kyle says, Kyle, I don't know that the Penguins were talking about Petrovic. We do think that they had some conversations with Edmonton. Petrovic seems like a natural choice, a right-handed defenseman with a bit of chip in his game. There again, I don't know how much different his game is from Gudbranson, but Gudbranson is a high-character locker room guy. That adds a lot of value. Don't discount that. Yeah, Oren, you're correct. Calen Addison is physically immature. Not mentally. When I stood beside him at the draft in June, my goodness, he was slight. I mean, we're talking, he made Mitch Marner look big. He really struck me as a kid who just needed to hit some cheeseburgers. Fatten him up a little bit, then add some muscle, and then we'll see. I don't think he's close to the NHL because of that. I think he would get clobbered in the NHL in the next 18 months. They're really going to have to work on him. I haven't seen him in a couple months either. Maybe that is the process. But you're exactly right, Oren. Christopher says, sorry, I'll behave. Hey, man, as long as you're not calling people names, as long as you're not being like Evil Pens or some of those trolls, arguments are fine. This is hockey. This isn't life or death. So have fun. Just be a little bit nice. Whatever's going on here, I don't care. Yeah, Keith notices that Broussard went for a third rounder today. In part, that's because everyone knew Florida wasn't going to give him $5 or $6 million next year. But tell you what, that makes Jim Rutherford's trade for Derek Broussard look a lot better, doesn't it? It really does. I mean, sure, the Penguins would have loved to have been able to go shopping for a guy like Mark Stone. And in reality, Stone didn't go for a lot, did he? It was a very good prospect and a top pick and a plugger, wasn't it? Was that the deal? I was kind of, up to my neck in work. Sure, they would have loved to have been able to do that. Let me tell you something. This summer, a lot of things are going to be on the table for the Penguins unless they make a big run. And even if they make a big run, I think a lot of things are going to be on the table which might surprise you. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, off limits. Gensel, off limits. Most likely. Somebody would have to come to the table with a hell of an offer to get Jake Gensel as well. Literally, everything and everybody else is fair game for the Penguins after this season. And I mean everything and everybody but those four. I've already heard some rumblings. The Penguins are looking ahead to contracts for some of their core players and wondering if it's going to be worth it. There's a lot of inconsistency with some of the Penguins' core and guys they rely on, and they're wondering, can they do better? Maybe they take a little step down in talent, but if they get a more consistent player, does that mitigate this roller coaster ride and thus lead to a better performance, a better performing team? They're wondering that. There are a couple schools of thought in the Penguins organization right now. We're hearing a few different ones. This summer could be the final sweep of the Penguins' back-to-back Cup teams, except for that rock-solid inner core of Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and keeping Gensel as well. Yeah, the Pens do have 2 against Nashville. I could see Gudbranson trying to make a favorable impression on his new teammates and punching Wayne Simmons. Oh, I could see that. The Penguins were not pleased with that hit at all. Savage Beastie asked, do I feel Cullen should be a healthy scratch to get him some rest and get Bluger more games? Well, Bluger was sent down today, so this won't be a question for at least a week, or at least a relevant question for at least a week. I could see that happening later in the season. If, and only if, Savage Beastie, if and only if the Penguins have a comfortable cushion. If they're where they are now, 1 point in, 1 point out, absolutely not. Matt Cullen will be the fourth-line center, and Cullen might even play more than 10 minutes. You might see him rolling 12. You're going to see an all-out assault to get in the playoffs. Oh, yeah, that's right. CBJ got Kincaid as well. Yeah, they might just start him against the Penguins in the next 3 games and not care that they gave up a 5th-round pick for those 3 games. I could see that. I really could. Tortorella is not a dummy. What's my opinion on the goaltending? Obviously, forgive me, I'm reading. Ryan asked, obviously they need both Murray and DeSmith. Who should get the start tomorrow night? Matt Murray. Actually, I was teasing Murray a little bit today. I shouldn't say teasing him, but I cracked him up a little bit before practice, and I tweeted out the picture. Let me see if I can pull that up here. Murray was kind of going through the drills, right, of trying to find a puck through traffic, and he went through that. So I asked him in the locker room, hey, did you want to add some rain to up the difficulty? And, he took it, I think, in good stride. Obviously, he wasn't happy with his Saturday performance. You saw the stories. I am trying to find, here it is. Let me see if I can get that full screen. Darn it. I will get this full screen here. Oh, hey, I crossed 44,000 tweets today in the last 6 years. 5 years. See, here was Penguins fans' reaction when they saw Gudbranson traded. That's my little Leo, my grandson. That was the Penguins' reaction. Let me see if I can find this drill that they were doing. I did take a picture and tweet it out. Give me a second. I'm scrolling as fast as I can. Oh, there it is. See if I can make everything bigger. I can't. So you're going to have to just, there. Matt Murray kind of looking through pucks, through that. Look, the guy realized he whiffed on a puck through a little bit of traffic, and so that's what he was working on today. As you see my Twitter feed. I'm glad I didn't have any DMs up. Our source was DMing us today instead of tweeting, or not tweeting, texting. Oh, Jennifer on Twitter asks, what if Gudbranson isn't like the rug that pulls the room together? And the answer to that is simple. Then all they gave up was Tanner Pearson. Ta-da! Oh, she deleted it. Oh, darn. It was a smart question. And I get it. And this is what I think I bring to the conversation within the Pittsburgh hockey media is I try to answer the question beyond the superficial, beyond the first reaction. When everyone's like, Gudbranson, I'm like, okay, bigger picture, bigger context here. Anywho, let me get back to the chat board here. What did y'all think of Vegas going for it, getting Stone, and then Nashville picking up Granlund and Simmons to kind of make up for that? And Winnipeg, who did Winnipeg get? Was it Johansson? No, Johansson went to Boston. Who did? Winnipeg got. Well, they got Pat Lindholm for Nick Pettin. I mean, that was a big deal. And they got Matt Hendricks, another big deal. Sarcasm. I apologize. Oh, that's right. Winnipeg got Hayes. That was their big get. I like it. All of the big Western Conference teams got better, but only one can survive. And so, if the Penguins can beat Washington, the Penguins can beat Columbus in the playoffs. The team I don't think they can beat is actually Carolina. I think Carolina would just skate around them, take the puck, and drive them insane. Unless the Penguins are willing to go to the mat and beat the tar out of them, they wouldn't have a chance against Carolina. Kind of what the Penguins did in 2016 to some teams. So if the Penguins can get to the Eastern Conference Final, then we've seen them go toe-to-toe against Tampa Bay. Anything can happen at that point. The Penguins have a puncher's chance. The Scrivener says, draft site mock has Penn selecting a 5'6", 150-pound Cole Caulfield in the first. What say me? I say, Scrivener, I'll worry about the draft and where the Penguins are picking in May. when the Penguins season is over. Then I'll deep dive into the prospects. And man, I am writing over 100 articles a month and doing these videos and doing several videos a week, covering the games. I don't have time to dive into the prospects just yet. Sorry, man. Where am I here? New goaltending coach? I don't think so. This is on Matt Murray. This is on Murray to steady himself. This is on Murray to pick it up, to be his best self, to have the confidence and the swagger to stand on the top of the crease even on nights when he's not feeling it. This is the pushback. When Murray won the 2 cups as a rookie, that was before the league really had a book on him. That was before he settled in. He was still battling for playing time at that point, don't forget. And he didn't have to mentally adjust to the rigors and grind of being a starting goaltender every day. And that's been a big adjustment for him. He's admitted that last season. It's much different in the AHL when you sometimes play 3-3. You know, you can screw around on Tuesday. You can't screw around on Tuesday in the NHL. You got to be there every day. Where he eventually settles in for his career path, I think we're still finding out, quite frankly. And I think the Penguins are still learning. The Penguins know what he can do. But there's a lot of goalies, when they're on their game, are great. Look, Peter Mrazek in Carolina is a guy who was darn near bounced out of the league at the end of last year. I mean, really, Carolina picked him up for like a 5th-round pick, was it? Nothing. And here he is helping to lead them in this playoff charge. The goaltenders have these wild swings, and I don't know what else to say about it. Biggest surprise is Lou in the Isles doing nothing. Yes and no. They are who they are and what they are. They don't really have assets to give up. They are maximizing every single asset they have got right now to get into the playoffs. And that revenue, make no mistake, that revenue for the Islanders is huge. They really had more to lose than gain today. Unless they could have got Hayes, and looking at the price, I don't think they could have. Lou is building for the future, and oh, by the way, in the meantime, they're winning. Win-win. Unbelievable. Watch Penguins trade Kessel to Washington for Ovechkin and the guy they drafted last year, 30th overall. All right, Kyle, I'm going to cut you off here. No more serving Kyle, people. No more serving Kyle. Kyle appears to be intoxicated. Let me see what else I wanted to get into today, because I think there is a bit more to talk about regarding this. Why is it that Penguins fans assume he can't play hockey? I mean, yeah, the advanced stats are brutal in Vancouver. But Vancouver look, he's like a 30, he's a 42, 43% Corsi. His relative Corsi number is only a -5, I think. Which means Vancouver's a bad Corsi team. What do you know about the player coming to an entirely new system? And this is kind of the stuff that drives me a little bit nuts. Let's actually judge the guy after we've seen him a few times. Let's see what he can bring to the table. If he's slow, if he's out of sorts, if he's getting beat, then you say, all right, he doesn't belong in the lineup. Easy peasy, right? Isn't that the way it's kind of supposed to be? I know. Everyone has to be first on Twitter with the opinion, and then the 8,000 parrots follow, and then anybody who dares to be out of line just gets, the group gathers and says, well, get him. He doesn't agree with us. He's dumb. Get him. Make him feel bad. Bully him until he agrees with us. This is the... By the way, if you haven't noticed, I'm not one who's moved very easily once I've come to a conclusion with a lot of information behind it. I can stand firm. I can hold my ground pretty well. Anyway, Giovanni says, I don't get advanced stats. Well, they do mean something, Giovanni. Don't dismiss advanced stats out of hand. Mike Sullivan, and I haven't had a chance to get the article up, last week gave a really intelligent response to being asked about shots. Calgary put up, I guess this would have been when the Penguins beat Philadelphia in Philly in the indoor game. And they kept Philadelphia to the outside, but the Flyers fired, 40 or 50, 51 shots? Sullivan gave a very intelligent answer, which applied to Corsi, because he said shots and shot attempts. Well, that is Corsi. And what that really means, so if a player's 45% Corsi, it doesn't mean that he's a bad player. It means his team doesn't possess the puck. This is why a lot of teams like the Penguins count scoring chances, high danger scoring chances. That's the better measure of what's really going on. Corsi measures territory. The other stats measure scoring opportunities, and you don't necessarily need a 55% Corsi to have 10 great chances. If you're counterattacking that night, or if you're dumping and chasing, if you're playing that very simple game, then it becomes, you're going to have a lower Corsi naturally because that's just the style of the game. Stats on Schultz were terrible when they traded for him. Now look at him. Yeah, give a new guy a couple games. That's probably a very good analogy. Gudbranson is not Justin Schultz, doesn't bring the same skill set, but the Penguins actually think it's there. They think there are some individual skills that they can bring out of him. Now, if that's just talk, it could be. We'll find out. I'm curious to see. Are there any NCAA players worth signing for the long run? I apologize, Drew. That's kind of like junior players right now. It's just beyond my purview. I'm doing everything I can to turn out 4 or 6 articles a day on Pittsburgh Hockey Now just for the Penguins. I wish I could take a few days off and kind of deep dive into that. I wish I could take a few days off, period. But I'll sleep when I'm dead. So, last call for questions. It was, I think, a wild and crazy trade deadline day. Chris Letang looking to be back by this weekend. By the way, tip of the cap to the unofficial photographer for PittsburghHockeyNow.com, Michael Miller. He and the knitting lady often, I think they're very friendly. I think they sit together. Actually, maybe they are together. I don't know. I've only had some online chats with him. Takes some amazing pictures. His Twitter handle is @PensAreYourDaddy. Pens are your daddy. He takes some great pictures, including that one there of Letang tossing the quaff. Alrighty. So, like I said, last call for questions. If JR wants to bring Kapanen in, how does he do it? Would Bluger center him? Aaron asks. Let's find out. The Maple Leafs do not want Kapanen to be available. Contract talks are to start now. that the deadline is over. In fact, they were to start last week, but I didn't hear anything about it. So I'm assuming maybe they got tabled until after today. The Maple Leafs and Kapanen are going to sit down and really go at each other. They want to keep Kapanen. They really like Kapanen. So if the number comes in too rich for the Maple Leafs' blood, then he becomes available. How do the Penguins get him? With an arm and a leg. And that's what it will be, because there will be a ferocious bidding war for him. I almost called him Sammy Kapanen, like his dad. Nicholas says, Gudbranson is getting $4 million a year, has to be good at something. Sure. Look, Vancouver, let me ask you this question. Let me turn it around on Twitter. Do you think the people who run teams in the National Hockey League are stupid? Do you think that they're just a bunch of bumbling idiots who happen to walk in to the wrong office one day and get a job? Do you think that Twitter collectively is smarter than these guys? Or maybe they know a few things that the average person doesn't. Now, look, everyone's human. Every GM makes mistakes, and every team, dishes out a bad contract. They get impulsive or impetuous or nervous, and they do something a little crazy. Every team does it, right? But by and large, don't you at least trust that they see something? They're not going down to Wheeling and going, I think we can rescue that guy tomorrow. I think that half of Twitter does think that the people running teams are idiots. How do the Rangers get more for Hayes than Ottawa gets for Stone? Yeah, that was Ottawa shot themselves in the foot, and I can't tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that I think Pierre Dorian's a great GM. I have some real questions about him in the last couple years. I really do. They seem to have overplayed their hand and tried to play their hand too long in each instance. They tried to drive a bidding war for Erik Karlsson instead of taking some really good deals. And in the end, what they found was there was one or two teams left. It's the same thing that Jim Rutherford did to the Toronto Maple Leafs when he got Phil Kessel. He waited, patiently waited out the market to see where it was going. And by the time it was all said and done, Rutherford got his man at a price that he wanted. He essentially gave Toronto a 30th overall pick. Kapanen, it took Kapanen, 4 years to finally realize his potential, or begin to realize his potential. Kasperi Kapanen, it was a fourth liner scratch down the American Hockey League last year. It's taken a while. So, don't forget Nick Spaulding as well. That's what the Penguins got Phil Kessel for. And when GMs overplay it, that's what happens. The market, the bottom falls out, and I think Ottawa tried to overplay Stone. Nicholas asks, how would we look at Jack Johnson with no Corsi? I would evaluate Jack Johnson the same with or without Corsi because he's not a Corsi player. And I think fans get shanghaied into some of those bad arguments. Jack Johnson has flaws and faults. So you saw those against the Sharks when they were able to get on him on that forecheck, and it was over. The party was over for him. You also saw what a beast he was against Philadelphia Saturday night, did you not? Pluses and minuses. If you think the minuses outweigh the pluses, there's an argument to be made for that. But what I push back on social media and on Pittsburgh Hockey Now is to ignore the pluses, to only say the minuses exist. That's really all I do is bring some balance and context to the conversation. Where is Bryce Harper going? Isn't he a Philly by now? Didn't he sign with the Phillies today? I don't know. I don't care. I honestly don't. I'm a Pirates fan. I don't care about baseball because, well, that's just pain and suffering I don't need in my life. I date instead. I'm kidding. All right. I heard Gonchar is scouting a Russian to bring him to Pittsburgh next year. Mormon Gamers, if you can give me a name, I will happily dig into it. I will do some video work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. I've done an hour 5 here. I'm tired. Let me tell you what I had for lunch. Let me tell you what I've had for dinner. I'm hungry. Okay, Tim asked a good question here, Tim. And I probably should write a column on this. Is there any fallout if this team misses the playoffs? Yes. There will be significant fallout if this team misses the playoffs. If they do, maybe, I think you'll see a shakeup with some urgency. If they go to the second round or if they lose in the Eastern Conference Final, I think the Penguins will make some judicious decisions. They'll make good decisions based on what's best in the moment. If the Penguins miss the playoffs, I could see Jim Rutherford getting out the broom. That's assuming his seat doesn't become very warm. And I mean that. Teams with this much talent that miss the playoffs, people lose jobs. Players that you don't expect to get dealt. It could be ugly. It could be a bloodletting if the Penguins miss the playoffs. Nicholas, my carefree response to, Bryce Harper. What am I going to tell you, man? I driving back from Philly, I listened to some Philly sports radio, WIP. They were going bananas over the Phillies owner's plane being in Vegas. I'm thinking maybe he just went to Vegas because he couldn't go to Jupiter, Florida anymore. If you get that joke, I apologize. Yes, Mormon Gamers. You can email me, Dan, at pghhockeynow.com. pghhockeynow.com. Dan at pghhockeynow.com. Yeah, email me what you've got on that Russian guy. I will look into it. Okay, well, Chicken Alley King is falling asleep. Well, I'm glad you clicked anyway. I get paid regardless. And what has disappointed me most about this team? Is it Murray, the defense, or is it Malkin? Oh, man, now I'm going to do a whole other hour on that topic alone. I am not yet disappointed. I don't think that's an emotion I'm going to feel. Just, look, being a detached, analytical, neutral observer to all this, disappointment isn't something that's going to cross me. What do I think is the most disappointing for the Penguins? I definitely think they are still licking their wounds over the Derek Brassard, Phil Kessel stuff. They really thought deep in their bones, and I don't blame them. I thought it was going to work like gangbusters too. That was going to work, and that was going to carry them to last year's Stanley Cup and make them a Stanley Cup contender this year. And for that to fall apart, Dark Sealer 1995, for that to fall apart as catastrophic and as epically terrible as it was, that would be, I think, their biggest disappointment. And the fact that so many players are struggling to find their game into February. Good gosh almighty. Aaron's going to rephrase the question, who has underperformed the most this season? Phil Kessel. hands down, Phil Kessel. And I know fans are going to point to, he's got a point per game. His power play to even strength point ratio isn't even 2-1. And it really should be like 3 or 4-1, even strength to power play points. For it to be 2-1, or not even 2-1, in fact, I'm not even sure it's 1.5. Yeah, it's about 1.5 last check. I think that's a huge problem. Malkin still drives the game even when he's scuffling. Kessel disappears. And when he disappears, it takes away that simple game for that whole line because you don't have that third stick in the battle. You don't have that guy making the simple play for his line mates. You don't have that guy helping out on defense. That's been the biggest, I think, the player has been the biggest disappointment for the Penguins this season there. Saw an article, we tried to reacquire Hagelin, but was blocked by the NHL due to the salary the Penguins retained. Hadn't seen or heard that. That would be interesting. Chicken Alley King says, I look like Dan Bilesma. Okay, yeah. Come on, Chicken King, you got to bring a little better insult than that. All right, I am done. This has been an hour 11. I will have far more recaps and insider tidbits tomorrow on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. I'm also going to have that interview with Matt Murray. I'm going to put that up online. I did record the Jim Rutherford press conference. The sound in that little room in Cranberry at the practice rink is concrete block walls. Bad sound. And I don't know that I want to subject you to it. If you all want to see it, tweet me at the Dan Kingerski. I'll put it up. It's already on YouTube privately. It's just bad sound, and I hate putting up bad video quality and content. But I'll have the Matt Murray stuff up. I'll have Justin Schultz as well tomorrow. And here's something to chew on. Look at the Penguins, what they've done this season. Look at how much younger they are today than they were 6 months ago. They are in very stealth retooling mode, are the Penguins. And they're doing it with young guys. And that young trend is going to continue hardcore this summer, I think. It should. All right. Now I am done. We'll talk again real soon, kids. In fact, I guess Tuesday and Friday they play. So on Wednesday, I'll probably do a live chat again, kind of a post-game recap and chat on Wednesday afternoon after Columbus. So we'll talk again then. Until then, have fun.